Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the A+ Tutor. Today we're going over completing the square. We complete the square in our quadratic functions so that we can solve for x. Basically, we're taking our function of the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 and converting it to a times x plus d squared plus e equals 0. Now keeping in mind, A, B, C, D, and E are all real numbers and they're all just constant values. By completing the square, we are able to solve for x in our quadratic functions. Here are the steps for completing the square. We have two cases. We have the case where the absolute value of a is equal to 1, or the absolute value of a is greater than 1. We use the absolute value because the sign doesn't matter, just the value of a. When the absolute value of a is equal to 1, we can write our function as x squared plus bx plus c equals 0, because 1 times x squared is just x squared. The first step will be to take our b term, divide it by 2, square it, and add that to both sides. So we're adding b over 2 squared to both sides of our function. If we add b over 2 squared to both sides, the value of our function stays the same. Anything we do to the left side of our equal sign, we need to do to the right, so that we don't change the value of our function and we're just rewriting this in a different way. You'll want to write the b over 2 squared term directly next to your bx term. You'll see why in a moment. Step 2 is to factor x squared plus bx plus b over 2 squared. This is a perfect square trinomial. So let's talk about perfect square trinomials for a moment. A perfect square trinomial is when we have the same binomial times itself. For example, s plus t squared. This is the same as s plus t times s plus t. When we FOIL this, we get s squared plus 2st plus t squared. That's exactly what we have when we have x squared plus bx plus b over 2 squared. We can also do a perfect square trinomial if we have s minus t squared. So this is just s minus t times s minus t, which is equal to s squared minus 2st plus t squared. Well, if we look at x squared plus bx plus b over 2 squared, our s would be the x term, x squared is our s squared, and our t would be the b over 2. As we have a b over 2 squared, that's the same as our t squared at the end. So that means we can take a shortcut when factoring our x squared plus bx plus b over 2 squared, and simply rewrite this as x plus b over 2 squared plus c, which is equal to b over 2 squared. The last step will be to solve for x. In this case, x would be equal to negative b over 2 plus or minus the square root of b over 2 squared minus c. When we're using actual numbers and doing this with real examples, this will be a bit simpler to solve. So now let's look at the case where the absolute value of a is greater than 1. So we don't have a 1 as our a term, we have something greater than 1, and our function is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Well, step 1 will be to divide all of our terms by a. We're dividing everything in this function by a. So that gives us x squared. Now we have a 1 term in front of our x. That gives us x squared plus b over ax plus c over a equals 0. Now we're going to do the same steps we did when our a was equal to 1. We'll add b over a over 2 squared to both sides. Then we'll factor. And this is again a perfect square trinomial. So our s is equal to x and our t is b over a over 2. So that means our function becomes x plus b over a over 2 squared plus c equals b over a over 2 squared. Solving for x gives us x equals negative b over a over 2 plus or minus the square root of b over a over 2 squared minus c. Again, that last part will be a little bit easier when we're working with real numbers. So let's look at some examples. Let's take the example x squared plus 14x minus 38 equals 0. Our b is 14, which means b over 2 is 7. Step 1 is to add b over 2 squared to both sides. So we get x squared plus 14x plus 7 squared minus 38 equals 7 squared. Squaring our b over 2 gives us x squared plus 14x plus 49 minus 38 equals 49. We do not want to combine any like terms at this step. What we want to do is take our x squared plus 14x plus 49 and factor this trinomial. In this case, we have all positive numbers. So our s is x, our t is 7, and we will use the s plus t squared perfect square trinomial, which gives us x plus 7 squared minus 38 equals 49. Now we'll solve for x. We'll start by adding 38 to both sides. So x plus 7 squared equals 87. Then we'll take the square root of both sides. X plus 7 equals the positive and negative square root of 87. Anytime we take a square root of a number, we have to consider both the positive and negative value. We'll subtract 7 from both sides, and we get two answers for our x. We get x equals negative 7 plus the square root of 87, and x equals negative 7 minus the square root of 87. Let's take another example. X squared minus 12x plus 11 equals 0. Our b is negative 12, which means b over 2 is negative 6. We'll add b over 2 squared to both sides. So that gives us x squared minus 12x plus negative 6 squared plus 11 equals negative 6 squared. This is equal to x squared minus 12x plus 36 plus 11 equals 36. We'll factor our trinomial. In this case, our s is equal to x and our t is equal to negative 6, so we'll use the s minus t squared perfect square trinomial. This gives us x minus 6 squared plus 11 equals 36. Now we'll solve for x. Subtract 11 from both sides. We get x minus 6 squared equals 25. Take the square root of both sides, and we get x minus 6 equals positive and negative 5. Add 6 to both sides, and we'll have two answers. We have x equals 6 plus 5, and x equals 6 minus 5. So x equals 11, and x equals 1. Let's look at another example. X squared minus 12x plus 23 equals 0. Our b is negative 12, and b over 2 is negative 6. So that gives us x squared minus 12x plus negative 6 squared plus 23 equals negative 6 squared. Squaring our b over 2 gives us x squared minus 12x plus 36 plus 23 equals 36. We'll factor our trinomial. Our s will be equal to x, and our t is equal to negative 6, so we'll use the s minus t squared and get x minus 6 squared plus 23 equals 36. Lastly, we'll solve for x. We'll subtract 23 from both sides. That gives us x minus 6 squared equals 13. Take the square root on both sides. So x minus 6 equals the positive and negative square root of 13. Add 6 to both sides and we'll get 2 answers. We get x equals 6 plus the square root of 13 and x equals 6 minus the square root of 13. Let's look at another example, this time with our a term greater than 1. We have 5x squared plus 20x minus 60 equals 0. So our a is equal to 5. The first thing we'll do is divide all of our terms by a. Dividing everything by 5 gives us the function x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Now we can identify our b and b over 2. So b is equal to 4 and b over 2 equals 2. Our function becomes x squared plus 4x plus 2 squared minus 12 equals 2 squared, or x squared plus 4x plus 4 minus 12 equals 4. We'll factor this. Our s is x and our t is 2. So this becomes x plus 2 squared minus 12 equals 4. Add 12 to both sides. We get x plus 2 squared equals 16. Take the square root on both sides, and that gives us x plus 2 equals positive and negative 4. Subtract 2 from both sides, and we get 2 answers. X equals negative 2 plus 4, x equals negative 2 minus 4, and our x's are 2 and negative 6. Let's look at another example. 8x squared plus 16x minus 42 equals 0. So our a is equal to 8. Divide all of our terms by our a. So we get x squared plus 2x minus 21 over 4 equals 0. 42 over 8 simplifies to 21 over 4. Our b is equal to 2, and b over 2 equals 1. Adding 1 squared to both sides gives us x squared plus 2x plus 1 squared minus 21 over 4 equals 1 squared. Or x squared plus 2x plus 1 minus 21 over 4 equals 1. We'll factor our trinomial. S equals x and t equals 1. So we get x plus 1 squared minus 21 over 4 equals 1. Now we'll solve for x. Add 21 over 4 to both sides. We get x plus 1 squared equals 25 over 4. Take the square root on both sides. We get x plus 1 equals positive and negative 5 over 2. Let's move this over so I don't run out of space. And we get x plus 1 equals positive and negative 5 over 2. Subtract 1 from both sides and we have 2 answers. X equals negative 1 plus 5 over 2, and x equals negative 1 minus 5 over 2. Or x equals 3 over 2, and x equals negative 7 over 2. Let's take one last example. 3x squared minus 8x plus 4 equals 0. Our a is equal to 3. So first we'll divide all terms in our expression by 3. We get x squared minus 8 over 3x plus 4 over 3 equals 0. So our b is equal to negative 8 over 3, and b over 2 is equal to negative 4 over 3. When we add b over 2 squared to both sides, we get x squared minus 8 over 3x plus 16 over 9 plus 4 over 3 equals 16 over 9. Now we'll factor. S equals x and t equals negative 4 over 3. So this becomes x minus 4 over 3 squared plus 4 over 3 equals 16 over 9. Let's solve for x. Subtract 4 over 3 from both sides. We get x minus 4 over 3 squared equals 4 over 9. Take the square root on both sides. We get x minus 4 over 3 equals positive and negative 2/3. And we'll add 4/3 to both sides. So we'll have x equals 4 over 3 plus 2 over 3, and x equals 4 over 3 minus 2 over 3. That means x is equal to 2, and x is equal to 2/3. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below what other topics you'd like me to review. I upload new videos every Tuesday and every Thursday at 1 p.m. See you next time.